Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, how you doing? A little weird. I'm a little out of sorts, out of place. And it might be talk radio with no static, but there's a definite sound effect you might hear because lying next to me is a dog chewing on a bone. It's not a bone, it's a, God, I don't even want to know. It's a body part of some long dead animal. What is that? It's a hoof or something. Hoof or hoof, not sure which. How you doing? It's April 19 and it's a Monday and I am not where I usually am, so I am a little discombobulated. Isn't that weird? I just don't quite feel like I'm in my parents' old bedroom in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And since we spoke last, I've been in more states, more places than I've been in over a year, because I have been stuck in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, almost specifically in my house. And it's been odd being out. I'm going to brag a little bit here. I made it from Pittsburgh to Chicago without stopping for a bathroom break. Is that impressive? I'm telling you, is that impressive for an old lady? Now, granted, I stopped, but only to get more gas and to let my dog go to the bathroom. But I managed. Also, driving into Chicago, the news was of yet another shooting of a this was a child, 13-year-old. I understand that Sean Hannity called him a 13-year-old black man. Yeah. And, and I think Sean Hannity called Rittenhouse, the white guy who killed people in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He always called him a child. Yeah. So as I was driving into Chicago, I did notice police starting to sort of congregate on some major intersections that I happened to drive by. And I thought, this is my country. This is my America. And in the last 3 days, has it been that I've been gone? I mean, this is my country. I can't keep track of the mass shootings. I drove right past Kenosha, Wisconsin, and there was a mass shooting there, I think yesterday. And then later in the day, I happened to see on my Twitter account something about a mass shooting, and I assumed, it's Kenosha. No, it was Austin, Texas. And then a little bit later, another one, Shreveport. And I didn't even mention FedEx, because I drove through Indiana, and shortly after I cleared the state, all those people lost their lives in that horrific mass shooting. And this country is, guys, it's diseased. It is, there's a song in my head and it's driving me crazy, and I haven't thought of it in a million years. And I think it's a song I sang when I was a kid in school. And maybe because I'm here where I went to school as a kid, it's in my head. And it's this rousing, patriotic anthem. And the first words of it are, "This is my country." And maybe because I keep thinking, "This is my country," with my head in my hands, shaking my head, "This is my country," that song has come back. And I was thinking, wow, this is my country. I won't sing. Don't worry. Don't worry. Land of my birth. This is my country, grandest on earth. It isn't. It's sick. It is sick. Closing arguments in the Chauvin trial this morning. And I hate to even contemplate what happens if there is not a guilty verdict there. I hate to contemplate. Since the testimony began, by the way, in that trial, 64 more people have died at the hands of police in this country. Since the trial began, 64 more people have died at the hands of police. And it shouldn't surprise you that Black and Latinos represent more than half of those dead. The killings average out to 3 a day. And you can argue that policing is a dangerous profession. And of course, some of those dead may have asked for it. The police may have found themselves in a situation where nothing else would be in fact, reasonable thing to have had to resort to. But you know a whole bunch of others not. They might involve somebody who's mentally ill and acting out. They might have involved a traffic stop that escalated. Things seem to always escalate, right? And it's not always the person stopped who does the escalating. It quite often, it seems to me, is the police. Black people represent 8% of the population of Minnesota. They account for the majority of traffic stops. Think of that. They make up 8%. They also account for more than half of the traffic stops. Traffic stops for things as stupid as an air freshener hanging from a mirror, or a misplaced tag, or a light bulb that's gone off. And these kinds of stops result in death. It's these kinds of things that have to stop. And what I'm referring to, the term I've heard that resonates with me, is over-policing. Over-policing. There is no reason why police should pull over cars for these minor offenses. No reason whatsoever. They pose no real risk. Obviously, license plates can be taken down and a letter sent to the registrant of the car informing them that they have been seen to have an expired plate or whatever. There is no reason for so much of the police interaction in this country that results in the death of innocent people. We've just gotta get a handle on this if it's possible. Are we as a country willing to live with, I don't know, how many mass shootings really in the last 3 days? This is America. This is, I wasn't going to sing my country. Is this my country? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm ashamed of it. And tell me if a black American can sing "This Is My Country." Huh? Is that song meant for black people, or is that just a white person song? I think it's a white person song. Even though black people, I think, are overrepresented in our military, right? So they serve our country. They put their lives on the line for this country in numbers greater than their percentage in the population. But this is not their country. I'm sorry, I'm trying to check out Zach. I know my producer is trying to tell me something, and hang on. I just don't have my usual setup here. Oh, I have a caller. All right, come on in. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I was calling because it's on this current topic, but it was from your show a week ago where you had two callers who said, the classic thing that none of this would have happened if these people had complied.
Yes, that is true. None of this would, if they had just followed the police's get out of the car. That's right.
And we know, like Adam Taylor, what was his name? Adam Toledo complied and was shot.
Yeah.
Breonna Taylor was shot in her red. Tamir Rice was a child playing with a BB gun
in a park.
Shot. And never given any chance to do anything, and would have been shot had he complied.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares if they, I'm agreeing totally with what you just said. Like, who cares if they complied? How was George Floyd's life not worth the $20 that he might have? I don't understand why this.
The passing of a $20 counter bill should result in that.
Or the license plate, like you mentioned,
right,
that they had already knew was on the car by the time they got to the driver's door.
Exactly.
They lied about that.
Yes.
So, and then what does this need to get everybody out of their car and face down in the street anyways? I don't get that. Like, it doesn't matter what the offense is or isn't or whatever. Who wants to lay down in the street?
Have you ever, are you white? You're white, right? I'm white.
Yes, I am.
Have you ever, I've been stopped by the police. I have never been asked to get out of the car. In fact, quite the opposite. I have been told, stay in the car. I have never been asked to get out. How come they're always being asked to get out of the car? And often, get into a position. What have they done?
I have not even the slightest idea. And how do you, starting, my first time I ever thought this was Johnny Gamage. Like, how do the people in charge of the situation, the police, get away with saying they pulled over somebody who might have, there's no evidence that he ever drifted over any center line.
Right.
And the guy ends up dead. And yet the people in charge of the situation are not responsible. Can you think of any other case in life where the people in charge have no responsibility whatsoever? And did not the first caller last week who was yelling, I know he's a regular caller and most of the time I agree with him,
right.
But he was, I couldn't believe what I was hearing him say. Was that not the same defense that is used for, these girls shouldn't have worn a short skirt when they went out that night, so they deserve to be raped? How is it different in what he was saying than that thing we've all heard for how many decades?
Right.
It's the exact same defense of it.
Well, the defense, it's the victim's fault.
Yeah,
it is George Floyd's fault he's dead.
Right.
It is the 13-year-old kid in Chicago's fault. It is.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the. They say their names. I was pretty good there for a while, but the names are now so many I can't even. I can't. My head swims.
No, I just happen to know that was Adam Toledo, and we're supposed to say it was his fault because he was 13 and out at 2:30 in the morning. I'd like to know, how many of these people. I don't think I'm the only one who ever snuck out of my house in the middle of the night. I mean, and it sounds
you didn't have to worry about a cop killing you. I agree.
No,
I agree.
No, I might have had somebody else kill me, but not
right.
the cops.
right.
No, but that was just that call really got me. Because I've been listening to conservative talk shows, and that's what they have said for years now, and that to hear that coming out of his mouth, that was.
Well, the fact that it's almost a week later, and you're calling in response to it just shows how it really.
I didn't listen to it until Friday as a podcast, but still, I thought about it all weekend and was asking my wife, how is this different than saying that they shouldn't wear a short skirt or girls shouldn't go out or women should have to wear a burqa because men can't possibly can't resist looking at their bodies.
That's right. It's all the same.
Yeah, why did these black people leave their house?
You know what? It comes back to the fact, okay, so women have to be put under huge tablecloths so men won't be aroused and want to, rape them. Girls can't wear short skirts because, yes, they'll be raped because men can't control themselves. And the fact is yes, in regard to this, over policing and the police inability also to seemingly control themselves. It's why don't white guys in authority have to control themselves? Only their victims are supposed to have exercised control. So
that's all. The recording of that, the one in Virginia, I don't know his name at all.
Oh, yeah, God. Listen to
those cops.
older.
Those cops were completely out of control, and yet but
that guy said, I'm afraid. They said, get out of the car. And he said, I'm honestly afraid to get out. He said with his hands up, to get out of the car. And the cop replies, you should be afraid. Yeah. You're going to be riding the lightning.
How do you comply with that? You can't.
How do you comply with that? Yeah. Then what are you supposed to do?
Right. And even in the case with Adam Toledo, he did comply, and they shot him anyway.
Oh, poor kid.
It doesn't matter what they do; they end up dead. So don't tell me that they would have had they just complied.
Yeah.
That is completely every piece of evidence we have says that is absolutely false. So
I thank you. I thank you for your passionate and eloquent rebuttal.
Well, I felt bad listening to you because I think I don't know exactly what was going on in your head, but you seemed stunned. And
I was stunned.
I don't blame
stunned,
you.
And I don't think I adequately responded myself. I was stunned.
He's a regular caller, and
I like him very much. That's a great. I love him. He's been a caller to my show for a long, long time, and I was really stunned.
I'm sure I wasn't shocked by that too.
Yeah.
So,
hey,
anyway.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye.
Have a good trip out there. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. Okay. Jonathan Capehart, who writes a column in the Washington Post, talks, the headline is, being black in America is exhausting. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want, for those of you who maybe have some trouble with empathy, walking in someone else's shoes, this is exactly what he tries to do for you. He takes you on a walk that he would take. He says there is no one way to be black in America, but there is one way we live while black in America. No matter our gender, our age, our socioeconomic status, we are viewed as threats. And as a result, we live under siege. Now, imagine, if you can, if you're capable, that is something alien to being white in America. It's alien to us. And he talks about that a black person every day goes through some form of mental calculus before they start their day. And then that calculus has to be adjusted depending on a location they find themselves in, a circumstance they find themselves in. And black children are taught early about this calculus. He says, my mother taught me the first few pieces when I was a kid. Don't run in public. Don't run in public with anything in your hands. Don't talk back to the police. As I got older, he says that calculus grew in length and psychological weight. In 1999, when that Amadou Diallo was killed by New York City cops who put 41 bullets into him because they thought he had a gun. He did not. It was his wallet. And Capehart says, after that, I switched from a silver money clip to a regular wallet for fear of the reaction to a glint of metal by police. He says, my cell phone cover is always a vibrant color so that no one thinks I'm carrying a gun. I never pull out my keys in public until I absolutely have to. Someone might think I'm carrying a knife. At night, I always walk down well-lit streets with lots of foot traffic. Far too many automatically assume that black people in dark spaces, I guess, need to be killed, are suspicious. He says, even before COVID-19, I maintained a social distance, never walking directly behind anyone, especially, God knows, a white woman. Before I pass somebody, I always do a shuffle step to alert them to my presence. And that's assuming I actually don't cross the street or take a different route to avoid the whole thing altogether. I do the same when having to pass by an open-air bar featuring large groups of white men. And on he goes. You know how you might stop and admire a nice house? I don't. My admiration is done on the move. You know how you might take a look inside a sweet car parked on the street? I don't. I look from a distance. And as I consider buying a car, my interior color selection will hew toward tan, the better for the police to see inside in case I do get stopped for driving a nice car or whatever, which is why my dream of driving across country will remain a dream. Then there are all the little indignities. The clutched purse by a white woman, the tap of a back pocket you see by a white man to make sure his wallet's still there, the fitness room that seems to empty out shortly after I arrive, the salesperson who only talks to my white husband. And then he says this, the one comfort I take in this harrowing time is that fewer white people will write off what I have just said as petty or paranoid. They've seen the videos. They've heard the wails of distraught families and angry communities, and they're starting to understand the contours of our pain. Yeah. I remember once trying to explain, and not taking away anything from that, what it is to be black in America, but also white men need to understand that a woman has these kinds of calculations too, by virtue of being a woman. That we don't walk in certain places or can't buy. We do not have the freedom that white men have. And I understand it's difficult for white men to comprehend that what they think of as just regular life is easier in so many ways, less fraught, less risky. And speaking of risk, here's an interesting thing I wanted to share with you. Where did I see this? In the New York Times today. And it has to do with, why the hell are so many people afraid of, the vaccine? Or, what is going on there? And in the article, don't tell me I can't read. I pay you $1,000 a, God dang it. They're telling me I can't read this. I can't stand this. I'm sorry. Oh, I don't know why it won't let me on. But it starts with I think a law professor who asks his students a question, and it is this: Guido Calabresi. My brother's sitting here. He's not. You know him. Guido Calabresi, a federal judge and Yale law professor, invented a little fable that he's been telling law students for more than 3 decades. He tells the students to imagine a god coming forth to offer society a wondrous invention that would improve everyday life in almost every way. It would allow people to spend more time with friends and family. It would allow them to see new places and do jobs that they otherwise could not. But it would also come with a high cost. In exchange for bestowing this invention on society, the god would choose 1,000 young men and women and strike them dead. And then he asked the class, would you take the deal? And almost invariably, they say, being young men and women, they say, no. And then the professor says, what's the difference between what I just said and the automobile? Automobiles kill more than 1,000 young Americans each year. In fact, 40,000 Americans are killed every year. And we accept this trade-off, this toll, unthinkingly. But because this has always been the case, we can't fathom a world without vehicles. And so this is a classic example of human irrationality about risk. We often underestimate large dangers like car crashes or global warming or small particulate air pollution, which if you're in Pittsburgh right now, you are breathing in with each breath. We don't think about those things, which we should. Instead, we fixate on tiny things like shark attacks. right? I'm going to be bitten by a certain mosquito that'll take me out, right? And you see the behaviors. Everybody now has these Ring doorbells where they can see people. People live in terror of bullshit and don't recognize real risk. And we're seeing that play out big time with this vaccine craziness. I am told that Clarence is on the line. And Clarence, I actually want to talk to you. It's funny. Clarence, are you there?
Yes, and I knew that you wanted to talk to me. I have this superpower. I am a black man.
Yeah, All right, you. Here is why. I have two reasons I have thought of you in the last 24 hours, okay? One is that I'm sitting in my mom's den, and that caricature that you drew of two of her grandchildren is just so masterful, just captures them. And I take so much delight in it, as does she. She thinks you're a genius. I just want you to know.
That made my day so far.
Okay.
You know,
here's the other thing.
Go ahead.
Here's the other thing. I'm reading the New York Times yesterday, and they do a full-page article set in your hometown.
Really? What's it about?
Dateline, Canonsburg, PA, and here it says, right in the second paragraph, they say this. This patriotic town south of Pittsburgh. Now, first of all, that annoyed me, because what does that mean? Do you find Canonsburg particularly, but what the hell does that mean?
I have no idea.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now it says, and I want you, because you grew up there. Did you grow up there?
Grew up there, still here. Yeah, I've been here since 1963.
What's the black population what's the percentage black population in Canada?
Probably like 4%, maybe.
About 4%, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so you grew up. Okay. It says here a town of 9,000.
Yeah.
That was once a center of coal and steel.
Yep.
Canonsburg is filled with close-set houses, many with broad front porches that rise up steep hills.
Mm-hmm.
In front of the town hall stands a clock presented by the Italian American Association and a statue of Perry Como.
So far, it's accurate.
Yeah, so far it's right. We're dead on, right?
Yep.
Perry Como, who clipped hair in town as a barber.
His barbershop is still there, but you can't.
That barbershop is still. It is.
There's no access to it. There's a PNC Bank that's just in the center of town that used to have a stairs that went down that went underneath it. It was Pittsburgh National back then. There were stairs that went underneath it. You can access it through the basement of the PNC Bank, but you can't access it through the outside. But everything's still in there, by the way.
Well, you're going to know all this. And so it says the busiest enterprises on Pike Street are a thrift store, a church-operated food bank, and Fix Your Cat.
That's not
a storefront nonprofit that spays and neuters cats. Yes or no?
It's not it's there, but it's not the busiest. It's the busiest right now during the pandemic.
Well, the reporter is saying it was the busiest when she was there, or he was there, or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, of course, I thought of you because this is a bullshit article about how they went to Canonsburg and interviewed, people as representative of conservative, small town America, and a home of many veterans, and how they were responding to Biden's pullout in Afghanistan. That's all. But it's just so odd the way newspapers will hang a story on how they will frame it. So I'm just telling you, Canonsburg is. And cool. People know you as Clarence from Canonsburg. I mean, that's who you are.
Right? In fact, my grandmother was born in Canonsburg in 1916.
Your grandmother?
Was born in Canonsburg in 1916.
Okay, so her so she's born in Canonsburg.
She's born in Canonsburg.
Your great grandparents were in Canonsburg.
They came from Virginia to Canonsburg. Now, see, I want to just drop this in there. The family name is Hairston. My grandmother's maiden name.
Oh, really?
Hairston.
Okay,
yeah.
Hairston. Okay.
And one time I was looking up, I knew my grandmother's last name. I knew my grandfather's name, my great-grandfather's name. And so I'm looking up, and this was big to go look up censuses and stuff like that. And I ran across something done in 1999 on 60 Minutes about the Hairston Clan, right? It's like the second largest slave-owning people, in the United States.
There's a ton of black people named Hairston.
Yes, exactly. And that's...
Ton.
Yeah.
And that was because they're one of the largest slave owning.
Yeah, well,
the
family, the people who were slaves in the Hairstons kept the name.
And, right.
Yeah. And so I find this, and they have a website, they have a book.
I bet.
And I emailed them to find out if I, with my great grandfather's name, see if I was part of that clan, and I am.
You are. You're part of that.
Yeah, I'm part of that big Hairston Clan thing. So that's my grandfather was a farmer, my great grandfather was a farmer and a coal miner in Canonsburg. And
so he came up from Virginia.
Yeah.
Your great grandfather, okay, and he was a.
My grandmother's side, yeah.
Yeah.
He was,
okay.
Yeah. My grandmother actually worked for Canonsburg Pen & Plates at one point, and on the railroad when it came through, those kind of things. Yes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, and look what happened, Clarence from Canonsburg. My God. After
Now,
all of that.
Now, when you talked about the Italian American Club, because people now, because of Sarah's stuff, thought that Canonsburg was a Greek town. It wasn't. It was an Italian town.
Clearly.
Very segregated back in the days when I talked to the they're past now, the older Italian American guys when they
So the white people were Italian generally.
Yeah, Italian, and but I only want to call them because like friends of mine whose family's been here for a long time too. So you're not white, you're Sicilian. Quit it, because they were discriminated against and all that kind of good stuff way back when.
So you didn't see them as white. You didn't see them as white.
No, they were by Italian. You said they're white, but I call them Sicilian so that they know. That their grandfathers were not white people when they got
here. Okay. Well,
don't try to act white when you're Sicilian.
Don't try it. Right.
Okay. I sound like you're the N words of Italy, so quit it. I say the same thing to Irish friends I have too. So you must stop trying to be white.
Well, that's true. The Irish as well. That's right. Absolutely.
Literally, I said you literally was a different race. Now.
Yeah, it really. It's true, isn't it? It's true. So listen, Clarence. I want to get my brother into the mix here. So.
I want to hear him. Let me get my coffee.
Okay. But I never asked you why you called. But I mean, did you call for a reason?
Well, but you're off the subject. So I was talking. That's just a friend of mine named Big Scott and I were talking about police violence against black men, and his name is Big Scott. And he's bigger and darker than me, so he had a lot more problems than I did. We were talking about that. So, but
some other time.
Yeah,
some other time.
Let me caffeine up so your brother and his big words don't put me to sleep.
All right, goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. He's phoning in now, and he's actually sitting in the. He's lying on the bed. I'm sitting on a couch, and he's going home tomorrow. So this is last. Bill, are you there? Are you on?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's a little troublesome because I'm getting a little delay. So maybe you should
go into
another room. Okay. So. Bill, I should tell you that Clarence just said he was going to go get some more coffee. He needed to be caffeinated to stay awake through all your big words.
Yeah, well, there's nothing more contemptible than a professor. Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you are in Europe. You are honored, kind of. Well, kind of. But in America, you are like looked down upon as the lowest hod carrier. I mean, you just are an object of ridicule, and I must say, justly so. I mean, there is more stupidity that goes on in the universities than just about anywhere outside of MAGA rally. So I mean, it's just extraordinary.
Do your colleagues know that you have this lowly opinion of them?
Yes, I think they do. A few of my colleagues share that view, but most don't. And I always thought that society had two immured, that means two walled institutions for what they consider dangerous people. One we call prisons, and the other we call institutions of higher learning, which are also immured. And we put the people who we fear for physical reasons in one, and then we put the people we fear for mental reasons in another, and that's it. So I'm locked up in a university, although I'm only 1/4 locked up now because I'm 3/4 retired. I'm 75, which means
3/4 retired, meaning what? You do teach a little.
I'm just down to one course every year, and one more to go, and then I'm done for good. At 75, your brain don't work much anymore.
Well,
and you teach yourself.
It doesn't work quite as well, but
and you at 73, brain is not working as well as it once did.
Tell me about it. I know that, and I think anybody who's listened to me over the years can probably notice a decline.
Well, if you get dumb enough, a little more, you got a ways to go. You can start addressing. You can run for Congress. And,
right, or I could turn to right-wing radio.
Yeah, that's right. You're right-wing radio. You just get dumb enough. Yeah, right, sure.
Okay. I really wanted Bill to tell we were sitting outside yesterday. Believe it or not, I got a little sunburned in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and that's unbelievable. We were sitting outside because it was sunny. It was wonderful, and it was colder. So you don't think of getting sunburned when it's cold, which is stupid. Okay, Bill, we were talking. I don't know how we started talking about Social Security.
Yeah, we were talking about Social Security and risk, and I just brought up this story that Ninu wanted me to come on the show.
Ninu is me.
Yeah, and I can't remember the details precisely, and it's not in a class or an area of law that I taught. So, but I remember the discussion around the kind of coffee table. And it was when the tobacco companies were being sued by several states for the costs that smoking imposed on the healthcare systems of those states. And the states were suing to collect their costs for taking care of sickly people with, lung diseases.
Well, it's exactly what we've seen now with the opioid epidemic.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So the tobacco companies, so the states tally up what their damages and costs are for taking care of all these tobacco disorders. And the tobacco companies had a defense, an absolutely winning defense, which they could not, and for PR reasons, put forward. And the winning defense was this, that in fact, because tobacco does shorten life, and they know it, in fact, they were saving the state's money by knocking off people before they kept collecting their, health care, unemployment, and Social Security. That tobacco companies were doing a great service to the liquidity of the Social Security system. And in fact, the state's damages were less than zero. We are saving you money, states.
By not letting these people live into retirement.
By knocking people off early. And if you remember that when Social Security started, the average life expectancy was about 65 or 66. The feds were figuring they only had to fund 1 year at most And so it was a very cheap program. But one of the most startling things that's happened in the last 50 or 60 years has been the 20 to 25-year increase in life expectancy. And that means that old people are, basically economically going to take down polity. We live too long. So, and so the tobacco companies were thinking, we got a winning argument. We don't have to pay a cent, but they wouldn't make it because, of course, what is the PR saying? Yeah, we know we kill people, but there's other reasons, legal reasons, why they wouldn't want to make it, because it would give rise to a host of individual lawsuits of people who died before their time. So, but they were caught in a bind where, in fact, the case being brought by the states, they had a perfect winning answer to, but nevertheless couldn't bring it. So it's just one of those
frustration.
Yeah, the interestingness of when you have a winning claim, but the winning claim is so horrifyingly immoral that you can't bring it forward. But again, it's when Nina was talking earlier about our lunacy with regard to risk, how little remote risks will lead to cowardly behavior and stupid behavior, whereas we incur risks 20 to 100 to 2,000 to 1,000,000 times greater on a daily basis that we don't even think about.
Exactly.
Because it's just part of our lives.
And you could actually argue that the pausing of the J&J vaccine is sort of stupid in terms of the
crazy.
risk.
That's great. They didn't have to pause it long when they found out that it was only women from the 20 to 50 who were getting killed. So you can go ahead. It's just women, right?
Well, no, that was
no.
It just really, in real numbers, it's ridiculous.
Oh, it was pathetic. Even at its worst, the risk of dying of COVID was still about 1,000 times greater than the risk of dying of Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, this is a funny story. No, it's not funny. It's funny to me, sort of, kind of. But I don't know if you saw this. There's a sweet guy, the middle school science teacher in Connecticut, who knew that some of his elderly neighbors, were having trouble getting food, and he started a Facebook page or a GoFundMe page or something to raise Facebook fundraiser. That's what it was. To raise money so he could continue to sort of. He ended up raising $40-some thousand, all of which he turned over in bags of food and rental assistance and anything else that these people, over 100 people, needed in his community. Did that all on his own. And then he got a letter.
He died?
No, he didn't die. He got a letter from the IRS.
Oh, it's income to him?
It was income, and he owed $16,000.
Oh my God.
To the IRS.
Surely he has a charitable deduction that would cancel out the income. He needs to consult.
They said he didn't do it through unbeknownst to him.
Charity, right? Yeah.
It was a third-party transaction that required. So Facebook issued a 1099-K form to the IRS because any transactions that exceed 20,000 or something, I don't know what it is. Anyway, he couldn't believe it. And there's no way. He's 27 years old. There's no way I can afford it. So what he's done is started another fundraising effort
to pay his taxes.
To pay it back. But this, he says, he's just asking if people could possibly just, not use this third party. I don't know how he can organize that, but He's not using any online platform and is accepting donations by mail directly from people. Oh, man. So, yeah, unintended consequences of being a good soul. We have I want to share an email Chuck wrote in. The media this morning, he said, are foaming at the mouth with anticipation of the Chauvin verdict. There's already plenty of fuel for this fire without the media throwing on more. I'm sorry, but I'm watching these morning news shows and my gut just tells me they are giddy about the possible advertising revenues that this verdict will generate.
Well, it's not like you can't cover it, right? I know that I wish that there was a wall of silence around all these media attention seeker types.
Right.
But the media has to cover certain things, and the Chauvin trial clearly is one of those things.
But you know what they do, Bill? They I was talking about over policing. They over cover. So
yeah.
It is 24/7, and I really don't understand.
We should go back to the 15-minute nightly news and that Douglas Edwards with the news in 1955 that I remember. It was just that, and then I went back to I Love Lucy. But it was a much healthier kind of universe with just that little bit of
with that little bit of news
with who was bombing who that day.
Did you see the news, by the way, out in outer space today? That when NASA put that amazing landing on Mars, right?
Yeah.
Recently, you saw that, and then it immediately starts beaming back pictures and selfies from Mars. Well, they also put down I didn't know this, a small, relatively small drone helicopter. And this was to see whether or not they could initiate flight from
whether
Mars.
There's enough atmosphere to actually turn up.
It's 100 times. What is it? 100 times. Again, this won't let me access the. That helicopter took off today. From
kidding. So there's
Mars.
Enough atmosphere there to provide lift for the helicopter.
Yeah, it was its first test. So it just went up, and there's pictures taken from it where you can see its shadow on the surface of Mars. So it went up, and then they brought it right back down. But they're going to, continue to deal with this thing.
This is propelled by really a rotor blade creating lift through air. Yeah. So oh my, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I agree. And it was just, I think, a very sort of, they weren't making a big to-do about it. It was just a side thing, but they were very excited when it managed to get up.
Certain things like that, I'm an old, my specialty is old Icelandic sagas and the blood feuds of that period and stuff like that. And you're limited to written sources from the period, which you quickly exhaust and read them all. And now new information comes from archaeologists. And archaeologists now have at their disposal arrays of different areas of science. So we can tell anytime you find wood, you can date the wood exactly by tree rings. They have tree ring cycles going back like 1,800 years. So you can date a piece of wood when it was cut down. They can even tell generally what forest it was cut down in. But so here's a little story. There's no evidence, none in the written record, that the Vikings landed at that island off Portugal, Madeira. But some archaeologist finds a little bone, a little bitty bone, and it turns out to be a bone of a mouse. Now, they have all kinds of data to show that they can identify the bone of any creature. So it turns out to be a mouse that is only found in Denmark.
Oh, wow.
And it's a little thigh bone of a mouse that is unique to Denmark, which means that the Vikings got to Madeira but left no record. Obviously, they didn't do enough to make it worth telling about, or carted off a few slaves, and it wasn't big enough expedition to generate anything in a written record. But a mouse jumped off the boat and stayed behind, was abandoned. And from that little mouse, or from the bone of that little mouse, we can tell that a bunch of Danes got there in about 852.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that something?
Yeah,
I mean, this is information that simply a medievalist like myself, it was unavailable to me as few as 40 years ago, 30 years ago. This is just stuff that's new information that these people are putting together. It's just extraordinary.
Wow.
They can tell whether a stone, if they find a stone on a beach, they can now tell, in most cases, not all, but they can tell where the stone came from and whether it's a native stone by how the ions line up or whatever. I mean, and they can tell by the corpse of anybody with teeth where that person grew up. Any skeleton that has teeth, they can locate them within a couple, like a county, to where they grew up.
Amazing, really.
Something else, huh?
So here I finally got my computer to let me access this back to the helicopter on Mars. It says flying on Mars is on the edge of impossible because there is not much air to push against.
Not enough air to provide the lift. That's what
right.
I'm
so he says at the surface of Mars, the atmosphere is just 1/100th as dense as Earth.
Oh, okay. So
to generate enough lift for it's only a 4-pound helicopter to rise up. Its two rotors, each about 4 feet wide, had to spin in opposite directions at more than 2,500 revolutions a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like the coffin corner in an airplane when you can't generate it, the atmosphere gets too thin and you can't generate enough lift without flying at a speed that'll break apart the aircraft.
Well, I remember when I asked you when I was going to Bolivia, I asked you to maybe come with me, and the excuse you used,
I'm not landing at La Paz Airport.
You said I'm not landing at that airport.
Yeah, because it would be 20 miles long to get enough lift. Oh God!
I think it is the highest international airport in the world, and it is at I'm trying to remember now. What is it? 30,000 feet?
It can't be that high, but it might be 20,000 feet or 22,000 feet. Yeah.
Somebody look up what the La Paz Airport.
30,000 feet would put it higher than Everest, right? So I don't know.
Well, you can't breathe. I'll tell you that. They tell you before you fly, when you get off the plane, they say you're leaving a pressurized cabin.
Right.
And they give you that there are like handrails that you're to hold on to, lest you collapse the minute you walk off the plane. I was in really rough shape. I mean,
has any of your listeners? I mean, even if you fly into Denver on a hot summer day, I have been on one flight where where they had to take off fuel and ask passengers to get off the full flight, because it was like 102 outside, and with air gets thinner as it gets hotter, it expands molecules, whatever. There wasn't enough lift to get the plane off the ground at its present weight, so they had to take off fuel and take off people to be able to take off.
Well, then one can only imagine how the hell I got out of La Paz.
That's at Denver at a mile high. That's at 5,200 feet.
Wow.
So, geez.
Well, I'm glad I didn't understand all that. Though Zach says it's the 6th highest airport in the world, and it is 13,000. La Paz is 13,323 feet, and the airport is 1,000 miles above it. 1,000 feet, excuse me. So, because you land at the airport and then you drop down into La Paz at 13,000, and so it's 14,000.
Yeah, gee whiz.
And what was fascinating is when we were on a bus that was driving us down into the city, and I'm barely able to breathe. I'm sick to my stomach. I got a blinding headache, and I'm looking out the window, and there are these barrel-chested natives, indigenous people, walking up the mountain with packs on their heads, carrying these, bundles and walking up. And I'm thinking,
they're built and their lungs their shaped lungs are for the.
They have a much bigger chest. Their hearts are bigger. Their hearts are bigger.
And they chew a lot of cocoa leaves.
Well, when I got to the bus dropped us off at the hotel, I was literally hanging on the counter checking in. And the guy looked at me and he said, "Don't worry. We'll send an oxygen tank up to your room and we'll send you some coca tea." And I was chewing on coca. And it didn't help. It just did not help. I'm sucking on oxygen and nothing. It took my body a good 3-4 days to acclimate.
Nevertheless, our mother handled it with aplomb.
No, because this was my second trip, and she never landed, and she only went she never landed at La Paz. She landed in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, which is in the Amazon River basin. So no, there was no trouble breathing. Oh gosh, Bill, we went over time.
We went over time. Okay,
yeah.
Bye, sister.
Bye, Bill. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for your great stories. And guys, I guess I'll be back tomorrow. I might get used to this. And I guess Susan will be joining us. It's a family affair. Okay? Have a good one. Be safe. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.